Hey everybody. So it's been a very busy year for me. I believe the last time that I posted a vlog was pretty much almost a year ago, and I didn't have a chance to really work on anything. I've had some trials, I've had a lot of hearings, and some of those are actually posted on my channel, as you may already know, if you follow me and if you've seen them. This one is going to be my second vlog entry. We'll see how this goes. I think I want to catch you all up on some things that you've all been asking me some questions. You've all been inquiring about some of my trials and hearings. I've been getting quite a few comments on my channel at this point. So I just want to kind of catch you all up on what's been happening, and there will be another section that will be added about questions and answers, because I've noticed that there's quite a few questions that have built up over the last year, and I just want to, I want to play catch up, show you guys that I'm paying attention. I love commentary. I love when you guys are interacting with me. I respond to as many questions as I can. I respond to as many comments as I can. And anyway, so let's talk about something that has been the most prevalent, I think, and one of the most common questions that I get, other than whether or not you should refuse the breathalyzer. We'll get to that in the questions and answers section, but it does kind of bleed over into what I want to talk about today, and that is jury trials. So most of you know, what is a jury trial? In Kentucky, you have two types of jury trials. You have the ones that are in district court, and then you have the ones that are in circuit court. Now, the district court work is pretty much where most of mine happens. I do most of my work is DUIs, and DUIs, unless they have a felony attached to them, they're going to be tried in district court. So 6 men and women decide the fate of my client, and they listen to the evidence, and they make a decision. They make a determination. They go and deliberate. And I've noticed kind of a trend, and this is not just me. This is, I think, lawyers across the country, possibly across the world. I'll just put it to you this way. It is impossible, absolutely impossible, to bullshit a jury, okay? So juries are not these mysterious, anomalous creatures or conglomerates of people. All juries are 6 men and women that have been gathered to that particular occasion on this particular day to handle this particular trial. And they don't leave common sense at the door. And that's important because a lot of people think that a lawyer can manipulate them and feed them information that when they go back to deliberate, they're going to have no other choice but to find the defendant not guilty. And that's just not true. It runs contrary to my experience, to the experience of other lawyers, and I would probably venture off to say, without knowing it, it's probably the experience of just about every lawyer who tries jury trials. And here's the reason. Juries are people, as I've said, and people have bullshit detectors. They have very good common sense. They have eyes, they have ears, and they have brains. And the key is when they are in the courtroom listening to the officer testify, when they're watching the video, when they're listening to the if my client testifies, they take all of that information with them, and then they make an independent, neutral decision as to what they believe the punishment should be. Should it be, I've had jury trials where I have lost, but they didn't award any jail time because they didn't feel it was justified. But they thought the client did it, so they convicted. On other occasions, they acquit because they think my client is not guilty, and so my client goes home free. I've had a couple occasions where the client was convicted. They did not believe my client was innocent, and they issued a jail time. It is always on a case-by-case basis. There is no universal unless you're super picky about your jury trials, and I try not to be. If I think this has a remote possibility of victory and the client can afford my services to go to trial, I will absolutely take the case to trial. So at the end of the day, just to eliminate the myth, the possibility that these 6 men and women are going to leave all common sense at the door, that they're going to issue, and we've all heard of jury nullification, for instance. I should probably address this. Does it exist? Absolutely, positively, jury nullification is a real thing. The only problem is it's extremely difficult not only to acquire, but it's also extremely difficult to communicate it unless the jury independently decides to render a decision contrary to what you're expecting or maybe the prosecutor is expecting. So for instance, let us say, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but let's say there's a law out there that after I'm done with my trial, the jury does not believe that that law should be law, period, or they don't believe that the person should be punished or subject. Marijuana actually is a great example. I have personally not yet had a marijuana trial because I live in a big city, and most of my clients here get those things dismissed after they take a class. But some of the outlying counties, when there are marijuana charges, I'm waiting for the day when a client would say, you know, instead of taking, some counties will give them jail time, by the way, on mere possession, which is frightening. Mandatory, not probated, not anything. Sit in a jail cell over this much weed in their pocket. Frightening stuff. So those cases you want to take to a jury because the majority of people are, number one, they're for legalization. So that would be an example of jury nullification scenario, where a jury does not believe that they may still convict, but they're not going to lock them up, which means I've already done my job. I have beat the offer. I have been able to get a better resolution, even though we may not have won. We don't get the two-word verdict, as we like to say, the not guilty. But I still beat the offer. The offer was, let's say, 2 weeks in jail, and the jury will award 0 days in jail. That would be an example of possibly a jury nullification, or at least a disagreement by the jury with the law. So that's an anomaly. That is a lot rarer because most of the laws are kind of valid for the most part, at least the ones that I deal with. I don't do patent and conspiracy stuff, or what am I thinking? Corporate law, maybe that has some funky tax law. They have a lot of funky stuff. I don't deal with that stuff. I do DUIs mostly, and criminal, and the occasional civil case. So at the end of the day, just to finally kind of sum it all up, juries are people. Juries are reasonable people. They have common sense. They don't leave their common sense at the door. They don't reason outside the box unless you give them a reason to. So they make a decision that is commensurate, that is related to the evidence in the case. And what is the evidence? As I've said, they listen to the testimony. They watch the video if we have it, and then based on their own personal experiences, and you'll be amazed. I talk to juries after my trials all the time. I think I learn invaluable information. How many of them, after after they render a verdict, I go, what was the reason? Why did you decide this way? Why did you decide that way? How many times have I heard, oh, Mr. So-and-so said that when he 10 years ago or 5 years ago or yesterday had an experience with this one fact in your trial, he said his fact was exactly the same as your fact, so we kind of bought it and everybody agreed. I had my most recent trial just 4 days ago. My client was charged with DUI and reckless. I got an acquittal on both. And because they watched the video, they didn't believe the officer. The officer testified that she blew a .165, and they didn't believe it. They said at .165 she would have been on the ground, or at least so intoxicated that she would not be able to function. Yet her field sobriety test, luckily, thank God, we had a video, did not was not commensurate with the number. They didn't believe the number. But that was the reason why they acquitted on the DUI. The reason they acquitted on the reckless, which I was extremely surprised about, I was getting ready to just eat the reckless. They even acquitted her on the reckless. Why? She testified, and she said, I was following my GPS. She was new to the area, moved like 3 days prior to the arrest. So she was following her GPS, and she had her phone. And yes, was she guilty of using an electronic device while operating a motor vehicle? Absolutely. But the prosecutor didn't charge her with that, so she did not, because I think the prosecutor didn't know, so she did not get charged with it, and she would have been 100% guilty of that. But she wasn't guilty of reckless driving for two reasons. One, they understood that she had, as one juror said, the GPS device in her hand. So they did not believe that that was enough to, people will drive a little bit erratically, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning. She wasn't endangering anybody. They didn't believe it was enough. And number two, they said that they have all 6 of them, by the way, they all agreed, almost in unison, if not literally in unison, that they've used GPS in that area. They have had the exact same experience that my client has had with respect to the GPS leading them down one-way streets in the wrong direction, which it was exactly her testimony, which is exactly what happened, which is why the cop pulled her over in the first place. So again, don't be misled. You can't simply slap on a show and create a not guilty verdict out of a clear guilty verdict, out of a clear guilty possibility given the facts. So that, I think, is the biggest misconception that I'm seeing so far on my channel, given your comments and all that. Because juries are people. And at the end of the day, they're going to look at the evidence. And this is, I pretty much say this in every single opening, and so does the prosecutor. Only we disagree on what the decision should be. If you look at the evidence, you think about it, you understand it, you discuss it, and then you render a decision that is commensurate with the evidence was presented. And if it's guilty, then it's justified. I always respect jury's decisions, whether I win or lose. I always think, because they're a neutral arbiter, they're not part of the judicial system in the strictest sense, like me, the prosecutor, the judge, the cop. They're outside. This is why I think we have one of the best judicial systems in the world. We're actually one of the only countries in the world that has jury systems. The majority are just judges. Judges make decisions every single day about everything. So we're very lucky, and I hope that you guys continue to visit my channel. I will try and update it. I have a lot of information in store. I'm working on a lot of stuff. I have a lot of hearings and trials that I will be posting in the coming months. And I will update you as much as I can. And please feel free to comment, like, share, subscribe, what have you, if you like it. If you don't like it, tell me. I want to know. I'm not just fishing for positive reinforcement. If you think something that I said that you disagree with and it's legitimate, or you have a question that you do not understand something, by all means, I'm a human being. If I catch it, of course, if I get too flooded, I don't know, it may get lost in the comment section, but I will try to answer as many as I can. And as I've said, this will follow with a Q&A. I have a list prepared, so look out for that video. Thank you all. Are you recording all this?
I am now.
Shit. That's so cool. Alright. Do I look at the camera?
Most of the time.
Most of the time, so I don't want to be looking that way. I want to be looking
sometimes way. You look forward. Kind of like this. So it's been a very busy year, you know, just kind of one of those years. I've had a lot of clients and a lot of things have been going on, and
Okay. Ready?
Action.